Hello everybody and welcome to the first of two 4v4 games between BDE and Foxes in the most recent League of Legends tournament. This is a tournament being hosted by Badger Jelly over in the Steel Division 2 Bootcamp server, so if you're interested in joining, you still have until May 17th to sign up for a team. Get signed up. Get in there. Even if your commitment level is really low, try to get in there. However, with the game that is currently taking place, we had BDE featuring myself and my brother and a few others playing against Foxes, featuring Farid Rommel, Ashkan, Pontiff, Comrade Big Bang. Now let's jump right into what everybody was playing, which divisions were up against one another, and how they were used. On the far left-hand side for us, we have Lit Tiger, also known in Discord as Von Odin, playing the Stravitz division in a Vanguard deployment type, trying to get them early ticks. He's the only special deployment type that is actually in the game. No one else played anything other than balanced. Up against him is Comrade Big Bang, and he is playing 10th Guard. Just next to them is myself playing Fallschirmpanzer Hermann Göring, trying to use that Sturm Tiger to punish people, and against me is Ashkan playing 15th Scottish Infantry. Next up is General Falkelgar playing 20th Panzer. He is going to be facing off against Farid Rommel playing 6th Airborne. Lastly, we have Warwolf playing 122nd Finland. He is going to be facing off against Pontiff playing 97th Guard. Now, it is worth noting that while I will do my best to capture everything that goes on, this is a big game, 4v4, and capturing all of it with my voice is going to be very difficult. So I am going to go very quickly, and I'm going to try to get as much done as I can, but if you'd like to see the replay for yourself, it will be in the description of this video. So without further ado, let's hop right in, hide this panel, and see what's going on. Leading us off, we have a fairly bog standard approach. A bunch of M42s leading off from this side, PAC-40s, and a bunch of AA coming up from the blue side. We were very worried on blue because of the 15th Scots and the 6th Airborne about the amount of aircraft we were liable to see, and that's almost corroborated immediately with the first spawning of one P-39, two Mosquito napalm bombers, a Tempest Mark V, and another P-39 just hiding behind there. So we've got all sorts of aircraft already in here. These napalm bombers actually are used to devastating effect. We just didn't have the micro ready to reroute all these troops, and because of that, Pontiff is able to get a very early foothold over here. What's more, I mismicro this PAC-40 here in a bit. I'm trying to get it up to this flag here, kind of devastate these areas. However, this 17-pound gun does unload first. Over here on the far left, we have T-34-76s coming up as the Komroti roll. No commanders on the field on the left-hand side over here yet. However, there is an Su-85, a lot of Tenko Desetniki, a lot of Guardia here and there, and some Rezvedka. No early aggression coming from the left, the far left, and in the middle left here, we are getting some early pokes in, but nothing too serious. In the very middle of the map, Struppen are taking fire from air landing, and Flak 43s are about to unload. We have a bunch of things featuring the captured IS-2, as well as a few Panzer 3s and 4s coming up to kind of lay waste to this area, and Tetrarchs are already taking fire from the PAC-40 that was unloaded early. 122nd Infantry is still struggling. A lot of flame troops have been unloaded into this forest area here, and from what I remember, they actually remain there most of the game. Two Flak 38s, about too far back to actually accomplish anything, but this Krupp gun is in a good spot to punish this open area, kind of keeping this IS-1 at bay, keeping it back. Sis-2 is going to be unloading all along this tree line, as well as Maxim guns. The Tetrarchs are also being used to devastating effect to support this push from 97th Guard. Tetrarchs just very hard for the Axis to unseat, especially 122nd, that mainly only features hull-locked vehicles. They're going to have a lot of trouble getting in close where those Tetrarchs are and dealing with them. Over here on the mid-left, I am bringing up a bunch of stuff. Lit Tiger is also running a off-map plane right away. It ends up not getting its munitions off, the Typhoon finishing it off before it's capable of doing so, so we lose that on a fairly early basis. Over here on the far left, Pioneers taking up spots in the open forest. However, there is a worrying amount of no combat going on over here. The amount of Points that are just being saved up and invested is kind of troubling over here. Tanko Desaniki coming in. Guardia are also all over the place, so we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Sturmtiger is about to fire for what I think is the second time this match. He's going to fire right at that Churchill 6, ping it right in the head. Also stun a few infantry around it. We're also bringing up HG Pioneer and SPWs. However, I was unaware at the time of the 17-pound gun that's going to do a lot of work to those. In the middle here, we are beginning to push into this forest area. The AB Canadian pairs are going to be a real problem with the Willie Pete and immediately stun out those Erzatstrup, and the other are going to walk into that same trap. On the far right, we're holding onto this flag still in the city here. However, this flag in the open is completely dominated by them. Flame troops are completely everywhere. Game currently sits at 17-15 in the Axis, or in the Allied favor. IS-2 coming up to sort of put pressure on this town a little too close, but that's not going to stop him. Flame troops are making the Erzatstruppen fall back out of this forest immediately, and my HG Pioneer are pushing into this forest to try and kill as many of these as we can. No flags lost here in the mid left. One flag lost over here on the far left, where we kind of just lost it to light vehicles and T-34s. The T-34s end up being a real pain in our side over here because we just have no presence of Panzer IVs. Not for lack of having them, just for lack of micromanagement from our side. We do end up grabbing that flag back, bringing us back into that 17-15 split. On the far right, things are not going well. 3 Flak 38 trucks are going to do nothing to the T-34 and Tetrarch Littlejohns. However, they will do quite a lot to decimate these infantry if they're left in the open. AB Canadian pairs being spawned in by Farid Rommel, and there goes the Ju-87 cluster bomb on that T-34-76. He is dead, however, to the Tempest Mark V. Things unloading over here on the far right, and not a lot of presence coming from the enemy side over here. Bunch of Panzer IIIs, Panzer IVs, and Erzatstruppen in the middle here, just kind of standing around, milling about, waiting for this gun to get in place to take its shots. On the mid left here, the HG Pioneer were actually victorious in taking the city, and this Vickers gun is not long for this world. We're going to clean that up and begin our push onto this actual forest area. My main concern when I was playing this was actually just to keep a person's attention, not necessarily fight for any flags, and it worked to some degree, but I have some regrets. Typhoon coming in, we did not punish these enough throughout this entire match. I can tell you that for sure. We should have been killing these things much earlier on than we were, and because we didn't, it ends up just turning into a huge snowball later on. Panzer IV taking up favorable engagement against an Su-85, already has 1 penetration on it. No penetration on the second, 1 penetration on the Panzer IV. However, the Panzer IV is going to finish it off. We have these Mosquito bombers coming in. They're again just going to get away almost unscathed, unharried, even though we do have the FW-190A8 coming in a bit late. These guys here have begun to be a real problem. There's a pile of things here that we're just not prepared to deal with. In the middle here, I have managed to kill quite a few of the Churchill 5s and other things with the Sturmtiger. Sturmtiger does take a side shot from the 17-pound gun, however, before deciding that he's had more than enough of that. In the middle here, Falkelgar has begun his push in earnest. All of these guys are kind of stunned out in this forest, hoping to sweep through with the Erzatstruppen and get some surrenders off, or at the very least get some kills off. Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs harrying these infantry in the city. On the far right, things have completely fallen apart for us. The Krupp gun is being smoked out as they've figured out where it was. Guardia are being brought in droves to just be mass unloaded over here, and this flag has fallen to the enemy. All of those AB Canadian pairs that we talked about earlier coming up in those droves to just kind of push into the city and take it over. Over here, we're using the Sturmtiger to kill more Churchills, as is our wont, and things are not going well in this advance over this open field. 2-inch carrier are going to make those guys pay for every inch of ground they take. IG-18 coming up to sort of harass these enemy guns and whatnot, and a Panther coming up also to engage this Panzer at a distance. I can't speak right now. 2 Panzer IV of various models, one from myself, one from Von Oden, coming up to try to retake this town, but with those M42s and with the Resvedka in there, it's proving to be very, very difficult. Flak 40 36s are a little too far back to do anything to those Tempests, and the FW-190 is coming in for a gun run on the Resvedka, getting the stun off. Over here, Falkelgar gonna go ahead and use his radio mortar to kill this 6-pound gun, probably harassing him, and he's putting a fair amount of hurt onto these AB Canadian pairs with the PaK-40. On my side here, I am about to use the Sturmtiger to destroy both of these Churchill 4s. The Sturmtiger is practically my entire strategy when it comes to Hermann Göring. It basically kills whatever you need it to kill, no matter if that target is armored or whatever. So both of those things are going to go down. That's going to be a fairly substantial point sink that they just lost there. Over here in the city, there is still a substantial amount of medium tank support, so we're bringing up more Panzer IVs in hopes to deal with all of that. 1 Panzer IV-H and 2 Panzer IV-Gs coming up from me, as well as a Panther from Le Tiger. Over on the right, a bombing train is just being practically run on him. He's got his Krupp gun fallen back a little ways just to kind of get out of that artillery, as he did open fire on something. And we have managed to take back this flag, but not for really any good reason. The split is currently 19-13 in favor of the Allies. Panzer III's coming in clutch to clean up a bunch of rifles before they're capable of unloading, and put a little bit of pressure on this middle area where Ashcan is. These Panzer IVs are almost in position. They're going to begin moving through and engage these T-34s. It's a less than favorable engagement for the T-34s, for the Panzer IVs. However, it's one we're just going to have to take. Panther taking potshots at my Panzer IV-H. Not a great engagement for him either. FW-190 coming in to gun run the Tetrarch. Ends up picking up the kill, actually. 2 Tempests coming in. They are going to kill that. There's murder in their eyes. Almost no doubt in my mind, unless these Flak 36s are able to turn it back. Oh, another FW-190 coming in to joust them. Takes out one, loses himself in the process. Tempest Mark V coming out on top. Over here in the mid-left, the Flak 88s that I've been bringing up are starting to do some amount of damage, and Buchstalin has pushed into this open area, taking this open flag here, bringing us to an 18-14 split, and the Flak 43s have begun their dark work on infantry. We've taken this town also, 17-15 split, just as Phase B begins. Phase B is where we're going to start dropping off a cliff. If you'll remember, we have a vanguard over here on the left, so we're already at a point disadvantage come this Phase B to everybody playing a balanced deployment. Panther does go down there to the enemy Panther. A bunch of SPW-233s from myself coming up to engage this Panther, but probably not going to get any good kills on it. JU-87 getting away with murder here, and these guys currently engaging in this forested area. Now begins what I lovingly call the portion of this game where I am just off-mapped into oblivion, but we'll get to that later. HGers at Streppen coming up, sneaking past the 17-pound gun that's being harried by the 88. Typhoon coming in to try and kill all of my infantry. Probably going to get away with that. The 88s were proving notoriously bad at stunning things ahead of time in this game. Just bad RNG on their aiming mechanic. Herzat Streppen going to finally sweep out the rest of these AB Canadian paras and move on to the paras with the Piat. Panzer III is just doing a devastating amount of work to things in the open, and 50mm mortars being brought in to suppress us further. A bunch of 82mm mortars over here doing a lot of work, but we have managed to take back this city, if only tenuously, and bringing the split to 17-15. Another Typhoon coming in. Another time he's just going to get away with it, and there's nothing much we can do about that. Sturmtiger is opening fire on the Churchill 6, and on the far left we've lost mostly everything that we can lose, save for these 2 flags over here. The Panzer IV push didn't go incredibly well, and we're kind of being too timid over here when we should have been pushing in there, but hindsight is 20/20 after all. Over here in the mid-right, things are looking a bit up for us. The SDKFZ 251/10 doing a pretty good amount of work to pin down these infantry with its quick fire rate and pin down those that are sitting in the open. The IS-2 sitting over here in a safety bubble of Flak 43s, and we are 2 flags up in this middle right area. Over here on the right side, we are going to begin Sturmtigering more things, picking up that Churchill 6, picking up that group of rifles, the HG Pioneer MP44, moving through this forest, identifying for me this 203mm, but there's nothing I can do about it as it is an armored vehicle. Over here in the mid-right, we got Ersatztruppen battling AB Canadian Paras kind of in the open here, and Stug 3's coming up to try and battle these Tetrarchs, but as I said earlier, the hull-locked vehicles are going to have a lot of trouble dealing with those Tetrarchs at that range. The Tetrarchs are just much faster at firing, much better at that range. Tempest Mark V, again making us look silly with that dive bomber going down. 88s are up, but Tempests are simply too fast. The IS-2 is going to get one more fire at that 6-pound gun, leaving the only thing in the middle to be these 4 50mm support guns just kind of running away. A Maxim here, and here comes off-map number 1 over here on the left. 2 Ersatztruppen squads. It's not going to be a devastating off-map, but it does begin a pattern. This Panther engaging this Tiger, it's already got 1 penetration. It looks like the Tiger is not going to win this engagement, and he indeed does not. Cobra goes down, and that is the first plane I've seen go down over here on the left from the enemy team. I guess that's not true. The Tempest did go down earlier in that joust. 88 coming up, and the Sturmtiger has fallen back, awaiting ammunition from my next tick, as he only has the 1 380mm shell left, and we need him to have as many as possible. The artillery here doing more of a job to suppress his rifles than it is my own, but this is not always the case. Enemy 107mm mortars coming in, zeroing in on this 88. They are done with its existence. Ersatztruppen coming over here to sort of help in this city push, as well as the Stug 3s that are kind of just sitting on the outskirts. They could have a favorable engagement against these Tetrarchs, but we're currently not. 16-16 split, dead even, with this flag going back in favor of the enemy. We've lost both flags on the right. Both flags on the left are back under our control, however, with this one being retaken with Panzer IVs and a bevy of infantry, as well as this one being retaken with, again, Panzer IVs. Looks like the Panther is retreating from those Panzer IVs and 3s. In the mid left over here, a supply truck has been called in for the Sturmtiger. It's important to me to get the ammunition back under control, and this guy's looking to do another off-map strike. The 88 opening up on this Maxim, really reducing the amount of stuff they have here in the middle by a lot. Ziz-2 is over here kind of creating a troubling area for the IS-2 if it starts moving around. However, it looks like the IS-2 has already died here in the middle. I remember at some point a bombing strike had killed it, however I must have missed it on this replay. Sturmgrenadier running into mortar fire, kind of an unlucky scenario, and a Verframen coming in on these snipers, Ziz-2 and 17-pound gun. End up getting the stun and the kill on the Ziz-2, but nothing more. Stug 4 taking a favorable engagement against the T-34-76, but now it is up against the IS-1 Komrodi, and that's not going to be a great time. IS-2 coming up shortly behind it to sort of secure this flank a little bit further. On the far left, Typhoon coming in, however, going down to the A8, not before it takes out the Stug 3 F8, and the Panzer 3G going to take another fight against a Panther here in a moment if this Panther keeps moving forward. Typhoon's coming in to sort of harass our ASF coverage yet further, and an additional off-map strike coming in on this specific 88, 203mm off-map strike for 188 feels reasonable. Over here in the city we have another 88 coming up, sort of act as Buchstalin Light. Werewolf is about to lose another plane if it evacs the wrong way, that is. Not a lot of AA coverage over here on the right, and so we should have been doing more to exploit that. However, it looked like we just didn't have a lot in the way of exploitation toward that. Ziz-2 opening up on the Stug 4, and it's going to be at a crossfire with the 17-pound gun, so it's not like that Stug 4 is going to do very well. This forested area here is still overpopulated, overcrowded with these flame troops, just kind of creating a cacophony of flame that we're not going to be able to unseat very easily. Another 88 coming up over here on the right. 17-15 split just before Phase C in favor of the Allies. The enemy team has begun using the 75mm howitzers to what I would consider great effect to stun out my 88s, as these seem to be the bane of their existence. I'm moving up Panzer III and support tanks in a situation where they were going to be able to box with these more rifles and the rifles themselves, trusting in the fact that the Piat has a terrible accuracy. The Sturmtiger has been refilled. He is coming back out to play with the enemy team, and a Panther G is taking out all these M42s, however not before taking a penetration. He is sitting here a little bit dinged up, but gonna keep firing for now. T-34-76 in his range. I've brought up a Tiger to lock down this area in hopes to kind of box out this entire line here while not exposing him too much, because their power is kind of insane in this. T-34-76 coming up and sort of just hiding from the 17-pound gun. 17-pound gun firing at my Sturmtiger. Sturmtiger is all done with that. Going to go ahead and vacuum that thing off the planet. Firing, 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 and it's gone. 17-pound guns all over the place. We're just kind of dealing with them one at a time. The middle area here is still well under our control. They're bringing in a lot of air landing and Cromwell 5s to sort of unseat this area eventually, but nothing has happened yet. On the right, we've retaken, if only briefly, this flag in the city. However, Guardia and air landing have done a great job of pushing the Sturmgrenadier out. Krupp gun is going to begin opening fire, but honestly, I don't think the Krupp gun should ever have its HE on. It's kind of too expensive of a weapon to sort of waste as a infantry support vehicle. We've begun bringing in 105s and 150s to act as our counter battery, as these mortars are becoming to be a huge problem for us. HG Pioneer getting pinned down by these M5 HTs. We're sort of trying to sneak this T-34 around to grab these M5s, grab these 2-inch carriers, maybe even the off-map carrier, but a lot of planes are coming in. 17 seconds before Phase C, game is dead even. Well, you know what I mean, even in flags currently. 88 is currently fighting something, I'm not sure what it is. 17-pound gun in the forest over there. SIS-2 is pretty low on health, and the IS-1 is currently harassing the Kevos. Can't really do anything about that as the Krupp gun has been spotted. A lot of artillery currently just stationary, doing nothing. Flak 88's coming in over here on the left, as well as a Panther G. The Panther Gs are, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the Panther G if you're not fighting huge, big, heavy tanks. I think the Panther G has its place in the world, but for the same cost, nearly, for the same deployment cost, that is, you can bring in the Panther A, and the Panther A is just a better vehicle for just boxing all around. Beaufort is going to begin firing on this Panzer III. I see these more rifles coming up, but I kind of trust that the Piat is going to be trash, and for the first time in my life, I am let down by the fact that a Piat hit. Additional off-map coming in. This is going to be a common occurrence. Again, a Piat slamming home. I never have this luck with my Piats, but RNG is as it is. Panther G is doing a good job of suppressing this open area, and that Panther A that they had in the initial phase is gone. Arjusha is gearing up to fire upon this pile of things though, and it is more than likely that the Panther G is going to die to that Arjusha. Flak 38 sitting inside this transport here needs to be unloaded, but the Tiger is still keeping this open area under control. This area about to get off map to completely wreck all of my things, and more 88s coming up from myself. Panzerwerkting just kind of hiding back here in the city, and a Pak 40 that is in a transport that it shouldn't be in. It looks like right now the big plan is 75mm mortars. If they just shell everything to death with the 75mm mortars, then there will be nothing left to fight. Over here we now have two Krupp guns. One is running for its life, the other is kind of hiding in the side forest here, and Erzhestruppen taking an engagement against Guardia in the open over here, trying to sneak in to flank us. We have an artillery observer coming up to kind of spot for these 105s and 150s that we have access to. 150 very close to the front lines. Surprising that it is not getting a further radio range. However, the 150 is currently zeroing in on this gun and doing a fair amount of work to stun it. It looks like that Arjusha strike did go off, and judging by this smoking panther-shaped hole in the ground, I'm going to go ahead and say the Panther died to it. Tiger E and Flak 88 suppressing more enemy infantry over here in the open. Su-85 has been brought in to try and battle me, and Churchill 7s are now being used now that we've hit Phase C. Churchill 7s are just going to bounce 88s at that range, so kind of firing at them is pointless. However, I am bringing up the Sturmtiger to try and deal with it. Mid-right, we are getting pushed fairly heavily by these air landing Cromwell's 5s and Guardia coming in to try and unseat General Falkelgar here, as well as these planes that are just kind of harassing the right-hand side constantly. Back to a 17-15 split in favor of the Allies, with a bunch of Panzer IVGs coming up. In the left-hand side, not much is happening. We're beginning to unseat these infantry that have kind of scuttled into the wrong position, bringing up more Panzer MG34, Panzer Grenadier rather, and Erzatstruppen are currently fighting with the gigantic horde of rifles that we're up against. Tiger E is going to begin taking shots downrange, hopefully grabbing this 140, but no such luck. I believe, nope, doesn't even get a penetration. That's sad. Over here on the right hand side, the Verframen has completely ruined this town. Stug 4 is coming in to take a little bit of a hit from it, however it is going to benefit from all those infantry being stunned. We have lost this city on the mid-right, however, to the Cromwell 5 anti-air landing push. Over here on the mid-left, I have units on the map, ergo I am being off-mapped. Here we go with that. The rifles are coming up in a disgusting array, but that is kind of to be expected with 15 Scots. Over here, we've almost completely retaken this area. The SDKFZ 10-4 in a great spot to support these Panzer Grenadier should they decide to unseat those. More Panzer Grenadier MG34 coming up, and this F8 is actually in a pretty good spot to fight this T-34, likely winning this engagement. Here comes, yep, grabs it up with the PaK-40's help, and the Pioneer SVT are actually going to be in a very good engagement here, also engaging the Tanko Desetniki outside of the Tanko's range, so if they move, they're going to take a lot of damage in that. Panzer Grenadier MG34 sort of dying here. Oh, and the 10-4 is not in position to deal with them. That's 2, 3. Oh, Tanko squad, good job. Tanko squad completely obliterated all of those Panzer Grenadier. Over here, again, I still have units on the map, so we gotta hit me with an off-map. Panzer IIIs are taking shots from the 17-pound gun downrange, and I'm trying to just sort of rush that 17-pound gun down, but Panzer IIIs are sort of the wrong vehicle to do that. More off-map coming down over here on these Panzer IVs that have been unfortunately stunned by a pile of artillery. Our counter battery is beginning to clean up these areas. There were a bunch of 82mm mortars there. There are no more. 75mm guns still making a mess out of our things. Split is currently 17-15 in favor of the Allies, 25 minutes into the game. Over on the left-hand side, we have some 81mm mortars coming in there. However, we have nothing to follow it up, and there is off-map coming down on these guys here. In my middle area here, the off-map has just begun to fall. Again, the Tiger sort of sitting in the middle of it, firing away. He could not care less about that off-map. More off-map coming down over here, this time from us, the 220mm from 20th Panzer, coming down inside the city on the Grenadier Voltigeurs, as well as a little bit onto the Cromwell 5s if we're lucky. 88 is doing what it can to suppress the IL-2s, not doing a fantastic job. Sturmtiger is still alive, still beginning to punish these things, grabbing up that Churchill 7. Here come the Typhoons to sort of bomb these guys to death as I found a hole in their defenses. Sprout coming up to give me eyes over in this area, as currently this guy can see all of nothing. In this middle area, we've managed to retake this flag with the help of that off-map, and the Panzer IIIs are beginning to push back into this area. Cromwell's going to have really no answer to those Panzer IIIs. On the far left, we have more 381mm off-map coming down on these Panzer IIIHs, as the Panzer IIIHs do what they can to suppress the horde of Guardia over here. T-34-85's just really owning this open area. PaK-40 having no real way to deal with that for some reason. T-6 Tiger also coming up to support that T-34. However, because of some other shenanigans going on, the split is currently 17-15 in favor of the Axis. We've managed to retake this city over here. We hold this open field. We hold a few other flags that we just shouldn't have, such as this and this. Typhoon Mark II is coming in to destroy this clump of tanks. Never clump your tanks, boys and girls. It is always a bad idea. Incoming off map as well as Cromwell 5s. Arjusha coming down over here on this 10-4, I guess. That's worth Arjushaing. Over here in this area, I have managed to get a bunch of Valkyrie into a position where they're going to engage all of these Piats. At that range, the Valkyrie are just going to decimate the rifles. However, you guessed it, I have units on the map. Ergo, there is off map. The Arjusha does clean up my SDKFZ 10-4, a devastating loss for us. However, I think we'll make it. Air landing are in a good spot to begin engaging this Flak 88, and because the 88's out of AG ammo, I don't think Kelgar realizes it. That 88's just going to die alone. Mosquitoes coming in once again, still have yet to be punished, still have yet to die. Panzer IVs, though, cleaning up these T-34s, coming for the surrender on the Guardian. Tempests all over the place, tempests everywhere. The Tempests have realized that the Flak 88 is out of ammunition, and they have decided to seize that opportunity. However, the SDKFZ-71 is going to go ahead and grab one of those mosquitoes, finally. Flak Whirling also doing what they can to suppress these Cobras, but not terribly much, it would seem. Over here, the Cromwells have claimed this open flag, bringing us to a dead even 16-16, still holding the middle areas here, putting a fair amount of pressure over here. However, off map for hands is coming for me once again. Typhoon's coming down, sort of suppressing this entire open area, killing these MG34s and suppressing all of my Panzer Grenadier that were pushing into their rifles there. Panzerschreck also coming up in hopes that some of these units survive, kill these rifles Piat, and they can grab this Churchill 7, but no such luck is to be had. Our flank is now completely exposed to the likes of the Tanko Desatniki, Guardia, and a few other Guardia units up over here. Stug 4 doing what it can to suppress these Guardia. No real answer to the Stug 4 until these T-34s climb through this forest, and so we're in a good spot here. The IS-2 did go down at some point, not entirely sure to what, but to something. Urzetstruppen currently engaging the rifles Piat, and I'm not paying attention, so I marched the Panzerschrecks in there to help in that engagement. Enemy 107mm artillery coming down because I had units on the map, and there's off map number 215. We have a T-34-85 as well as a Panther G coming up over here on the left. My Tiger still holds this open area here, and we have a bunch of Valkyrie going to unload to their death inside of the off map zone. Over here, we have an attack ping on Fal Kelgar's off-map carrier. However, the off-map carrier, I guess that is a good spot. Riverboat coming in because there's simply not enough artillery on the map right now. Maybe the riverboat gets scooped up by the off-map, maybe not. Ooh, it does. That's actually huge for us. We end up picking up the riverboat before it's able to fire. All of these AT guns getting fairly pinned down. It would have been nice to have something to rush that down, get all those surrenders, but no such luck right now. Over here on the right, more Tetrarchs, the T-34s, and a bunch of Russian units have really unseated this whole area. The SDKFZ-71's currently a little exposed over here. Our counter battery is doing well at unseating, or at least stunning these 75mm, and we're retaining control of this area currently. The off-map carrier has begun its dark work of opening up with a machine gun. Over on the far left, Comrade Big Bane has disconnected, rendering him an AI for the rest of the match. Panther G taking an unfavorable engagement against T-34-76, another one coming up shortly behind it. However, the T-34-85 is coming up to bail him out, hopefully. IL-2M coming in, probably going to get an unharried rocket strike off on this Panther G. That's going to be fairly devastating, probably scoring a few points of damage here and there. I am bringing up more Valkyrie, so I assume that here in a moment I'm about to be hit by another off-map strike. Rifles Piat coming up also. Guardia unloading in the city, as well as T-34 76's 1942s. We still hold both of these flags that we simply shouldn't in the middle. Crocodiles and Churchill 7s are presenting real problems for our big guns to kill. However, Kelgar, seizing the opportunity, is going to go ahead and run Ju-87, check if they have any AA. Being that they don't have a lot, we actually double down on this and purchase a few more to grab up the few more Churchill 7s that are on the map. This is mainly due to the fact that you don't want Churchill 7s on the map, as your AT guns will preferentially fire at them and sort of, instead of firing at real things that are really a threat, and unless your god tier micro is ready, you're just not going to have a good time with that. SDKFZ71 is going to go ahead and grab an IL-2 over here, finally beginning to put some hurt on the enemy aircraft, but it's going to be too little too late, it looks like. Split is currently 18-14 in the Allies' favor. Incoming 2 cluster bombers. One going down on this one going down on this one. However, this Churchill 7 does end up surviving. Arjusha strike coming in to claim the life of my Sturm Tiger. And looks like my actual Tiger. The Valkyrie unloading over here in hopes to unseat these infantry that have once again taken root over here. Tiger engaging a T-34 76 at a favorable engagement after grabbing up the T-34 85. Cromwell 5 still permeate this area, and the Pioneer SVT have been completely unseated. We've lost this flag to this horde of infantry. Typhoon Mark 1B coming in, however, both of them are stunned out before they're able to drop their munitions. Huge tick in the favor of the 88mm guns. We're back at a 17-15 split. The Grilly is opening fire on these infantry and doing a good job of it. These Grenadier Voltigeurs are quite stunned. Snipers doing a great job to clean up these air landing, and these Guardia are laying in wait to sort of take these guys out. You guessed it, more off-map is coming down over here. Panzer IVs engaging this Tiger. That's a terrible engagement for my people to be in. However, I don't think I was paying attention at the time. Valkyrie coming up in hopes to unseat this pile of infantry after the success we had unseating this pile of infantry. Panzer IV currently engaging something, the Churchill 7, in hopes to draw it in and maybe get a few shots on it with this 88 when it's not stunned anymore. Our counter battery doing a pretty good job of killing their battery. Arjusha and F-22 being fired upon by this counter battery, getting a few stuns in, but it looks like we're not going to get any kills with it. Simply too far away. Another Arjusha is spawned in, and a Ju-87 GTAC-2 getting away with murder over here. Valkyrie are currently engaging Guardia, and were it not for the Cromwell 5s, would have been a favorable engagement. However, they are still going to clean them up because they had to start moving for whatever reason. Valkyrie are also engaging over here in this city area, and the 88s are opening up on a few more things. I have a few Erzaz-Truppen marching into this forest, so I have to assume I'm about to be hit by off-map. Typhoons coming in droves. It looks like they are all going to get stunned out. However, the Flak 43 presence behind them and the SDKFZ near the town going to prove to be too much for that Typhoon. This IL-2, if it continues on its current course, I cannot see a world where it lives. And I am correct. Incoming artillery on the 88, and there's still this pile of infantry here that we're having trouble dealing with. Another IL-2 about to go down, most likely going to go down. Yep, and there it goes. Maybe even slamming into and doing a little bit of stress damage to the T-34-85 1943. Panzer IV currently taking a really good engagement on these open field infantry, being that these T-34s would have to close to a nearly tickling distance to engage this Panzer IV. We have lost this flag in the middle here, as well as a few others on either side of the map, bringing the score currently to 19-13 in the favor of the Foxes. More Valkyrie coming in to unseat these infantry, and it's looking like these infantry are on their last legs. In this area over here, a Lux is being brought up to battle these Cromwell 5s, and it's not going to have a good time. The Cromwell 5 just has much more lethality toward vehicles. Valkyrie coming in to unload almost directly on top of these infantry. Being commanded to run all the way up there, maybe avoid the ire of those Tanko. Off-map coming down on the Commandant, as well as the SDKFZ mortar carrier. We are now being counter-batteried by the bevy of 25-pound guns, and they're likely going to score a few, if not stuns, kills in there. SDKFZ-7 getting hit by something. Ooh, mortar carrier goes down to that off-map. These Guardia DP have almost no way to fight the Valkyrie, especially no reasonably good way to fight them, being that the T-34 1942s are back here to support. It's going to lead to both of those guys getting surrendered out or killed. On the left-hand side here, there is a Tiger causing hell against our Tiger, trying to draw it into this Pack 40's range that it might sort of make that mistake. 17-pound gun being harassed by the 88mm gun in the middle here. Score is currently 18-14 in favor of the Allies, 38 minutes into the game, almost 39. Flak 43 is opening up on air landing. You hate to see it, but they're so good at it. 300mm off-map plane being stunned out before it's able to drop its munitions, and another riverboat sitting over here, having dispensed its munitions if this pile of pockmarks in the ground has anything to say about it. 88 getting suppressed over here by artillery, and Panzer III's being brought up. Pack 40 is engaging this Tiger. Tiger is also fighting Tiger, Tiger on Tiger action. Let's see which Tiger wins. T-34-85 is taking the aggression of the Tiger, however, for some reason. Valkyrie have managed to unseat all of those infantry at only the cost of their sanity, being that they're all quite stunned currently. Over here in the right middle, we're making a push to retake this town. I'm bringing in Panzer Grenadier to assist the Panzer III, and as it sort of pushes its way in here, the Cromwell 5 really not going to have a good way to deal with the Panzer IV or even the Panzer III at this range. We are also looking to retake this area. The SDKFZ 10-4 putting some work in with the Flak 38 on these Grenadier voltigers. Typhoons coming in because there is another pile of tanks, and Typhoons don't seem to give a damn about the anti-aircraft weapons. ME-109 in a good spot to actually kill some of these. Looks like mismanagement is going to lead to all of them getting away. The ME-109 getting confused at some point. Another 300mm off-map carrier coming in. Sturm Grenadier about to unload over here. Maybe retake this town area. In the mid-left here, my 88s are currently the only things holding the front together. A few Panzer IVs here and there, a few 88s, but for the most part my efforts have been completely thrown into taking this area here. Being that this guy is being played by an AI, there's not a lot of pressure all the way around, just kind of pinpoint pressure as the AI tends to exercise. This M42 is currently the only thing holding this entire front together, the only thing pushing front line on this area here. So if my T-34s are able to pick it up, it's going to be quite huge. Bunch of Panzer IVs coming in, again though, in a pile. You don't want to pile your tanks, he knows better. Over here on the right, we have a bunch of things being stunned out, likely by off-map, because I know how to play. Pack 40 engaging a T-34, 85, 1943, and a bunch of Stugs coming up also in a pile. Sturm Grenadier taking an engagement against the Tanko Desantniki, and it looks like they are out of their flame munitions, so if the first group doesn't clean them up, the second group surely will. Bunch of AEC Mark IIIs coming in to sort of act as light tank support, and the Panzer Grenadier have made landfall in the form of these SDKFZ 251/1s. Not enough AA here to stop the Tempest Mark V's though from dropping their munitions and stunning that entire pile of infantry. Over here on the left, more planes coming in. However, we did clean up that M42, rendering this entire area kind of open. The SDKFZ-7 is going to kind of sit here in hopes of grabbing a few other things before moving on sort of to that spot there, hoping to grab that flag, and I end up grabbing it for a short time, bringing it to 17-15 in favor of the Axis. DO-217E4 coming in to bomb a few T-34s and the Tiger. Looks like he's going to get away with that bombing run. Let's see what it does. Fairly benign. Only picking up the T-34-76 1942. Still flanking troops over here, kind of endangering our munitions trucks back here, but nothing we can't handle. The IS-2 1944 taking shots from the 150mm mortar that were just dumb firing into them, it looks like. The AEC Mark IIIs are coming up, sweeping through, you guessed it, off-map. Oh, and more off-map. Let's get some more off-map on there. PE2 with rudder damage, however, it looks like that's just going to go off without a hitch. Bombing right into those Valkyrie, bunch of air landing and rifles coming in to seal this gap that I've noticed. Panzer Grenadier are moving in over here to take this open area, however, Typhoons are not far off. This Tiger still holds this open area fairly well. I've misclicked and sent 3 supply trucks so we can all laugh at me. However, this Tiger deserves all 3 of those supply trucks, being that he's currently boxing an enemy Tiger and a T-34 1985 to a standstill. Tiger gets a penetration on him from the enemy Tiger. However, let's see what happens here. No kill. Tiger goes down to the enemy our T-34-85. On the right side over here, more artillery coming down on the flak drilling, just kind of completely suppressing those. Here comes that off-map strike that we saw earlier. However, the off-map carrier that did it is likely dead. Pathfinders and Challengers coming in, and the Panzer IIIs have not much they can do against the Challenger at that range. Both Panzer IVs going up to off-map. Hey look, more off-map. We are able to grab a hold of this flag here just because I think there wasn't enough units here to really combat it. This flag here also going down to the Tempest Mark V spam. Panzer Grenadier and G34 doing what they can against the 3 squads of Resvedka that are marching in there. Oh, look, off map. Coming down on the Stug 3 pile. Don't pile your tanks. Artillery observer up here, as well as an KFZ-71 in a very bold position, hopefully trying to get a few cheeky shots on that Guardia squad. Churchill 7 now in the city area here, off map coming down. 88 is currently suppressing a few things running across the open. And T-34 1942s, again in a pile, I know better, I promise. Running up this left-hand side to retain control of this flag, bringing us to a mere 18-14 split, 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining. On the left-hand side, T-34-76s, again spelling the doom for this guy, he just has no way to deal with those medium tanks, seemingly. Bunch of rifles near landing running through this forested area. We retain control of this flag. Typhoons coming in, likely, oh, there was an off-map strike. It looks like, oh, it had to be repositioned. Typhoons coming in. Only one Typhoon got its munitions off. These T-34s and Panzer IVs likely going to drive. Oh, never mind. They're not going to make it that far. The planes are going to see to the end of that pile of tanks. Grenadier engaging a Zenar. That's kind of a brave engagement, but all of these supply trucks were actually claimed by the Tanko Desetniki. Another off-map strike coming down here. 16-16 currently tied up on flags, just kind of holding a few things together. Currently one single Panzer Grenadier squad holds this area down. Luckily, we can't fight it, we're going to off-map it. Over here on the left-hand side, beginning to unseat a few things, however there is a Tiger coming up. That's a bold DO-217 strike that's likely going to kill all of those infantry. Yeah, that was a pretty good run. Didn't end up securing any kills, but it did keep them stunned. Holding on to this flag here in the open with an SDK of Z251/1, only because the IS-2 1944 missed its shot, keeping it at that 16-16 split in hopes of bringing this game back, but it's not looking good. Panzer IVs coming in to suppress these air landing that are engaging the Spartrupp, and the Panzer IV is also engaging the Challenger tank. Let's see what happens here. It's not looking good for the Panzer IV. This flag does cede back to the Allied side, bringing us to 3, 2, and 1. The bombing run won't go off. That's the game. That brings the final scores to Farid Rommel playing 6th Airborne with 72, 92, 239, 80. Ashkins playing 15th Scots 39, 22, 246, 30. Pontiff playing 97th Guard 46, 97, 254, 70. Comrade Big Bang, also the guy who DC'd, playing 10th Guard 4207, 254, or 5245, excuse me. Lay Tiger on our team coming in with 4195 to 4620. Warwolf coming in 3670, 4555. Myself coming in 5100 to 5680. And General Falkelgar coming in 6265 to 5925. If I had to pinpoint anything that went wrong, we did not engage well on either flank. We had a few micromanagement issues, a few issues of like learning how to play with one another, as this was my and Kelgar's first time playing with Lay Tiger and Warwolf. So there was a little bit of a learning curve there. However, for the most part, I think our biggest problem was the fact that we weren't punishing the artillery and the planes as early as we should have been. We should have been on top of that counter battery. We should have been on top of that AA a lot more than we were, and we shouldn't have been stacking things up as much as we were. In fairness, however, a huge majority of the losses that I suffered especially, and obviously on the other fronts, were from off-map. It was just off-map the game, the movie, it felt like. Every single time I tried to advance into that forest, off-map. Every time I was in the open field, off-map. Every time anything was happening, it was either off-map or tempests. For the most part, though, that is our fault. We should have been punishing the lack of units on the field. We should have been more aggressive in the middle where we had broken through, and we should have been dealing with the medium tanks on either side and the bevy of infantry on either side much, much better. Should have been exploiting the fact that 6th Airborne has literally no AA in the deck. I mean, it has some, but come on. The Tripolstons are trash. On top of that, we should have been really, really doubling down when we noticed there wasn't any AA on the right-hand side, and it's very difficult to get AA into the right-hand side of the map from our perspective without suffering sort of casualties from doing it. Putting them at the edge of that forest is hard. Putting them behind the forest puts them too far back. We should have been punishing that from minute 1, especially with 122nd. However, that is going to do it for this video, this first cast of the game between BDE and Foxes. Our next game is yet to be scheduled, but I will also be casting that one. Have an excellent day, and I hope you guys learned something.